Alright, this video is how I do my personal reflections, part 3. In part 1, I talked about why I do my personal reflections. I talked about 10 different categories that I like to organize my thoughts and memories into while doing my personal reflections. And I talked about what positive things I would like to get from doing my personal reflections. In part 2, I talked about my personal reflection questions and what negative things can happen if I don't do my personal reflections often enough, or if I don't do my personal reflections as well as I would like to be able to do them. I've had a lot of difficulty making this video so far. I had to deal with a lot of distractions while trying to make this video. The dog kept trying to get the attention of my mother because the dog wanted my mother to get up and get him some food. My mother was trying to take a nap at the time, so my mother kept getting annoyed by the dog and kept yelling at the dog, and I wanted both my mother and the dog to be quiet so that I could make my video. So I gave the dog a treat, hoping that that would be enough to satisfy him. Unfortunately, it was not. The dog did not like being in my room for too long, so the dog wanted to be let out of my room. So I let the dog out of my room, and he continued to annoy my mother. Eventually, my mother got up and got him some food. I had several failed attempts at making the video, and as a result of that, my mind is so tired out that I ended up having to write down almost word for word what I wanted to say during different parts of the video. And I don't like doing that, but in this case I had no choice. Right now, for this part, the part with me attempting to talk about the difficulties I've had with making this video, that part I don't have hardly anything for that part written down in my notes, so hopefully the video will be a lot easier to make once I get past that part. I hope the video won't be too long, especially considering how much time I've spent so far having failed attempts at making the video. Now I need to try to get back on track and figure out where I left off. And at this point, I've spent so much time trying to make this video that I am not going to restart it. So I hope that what has happened so far isn't too much of an issue. So I was talking about difficulties with making this video after I had finished writing down a lot of things that I wanted to say in this video. I had to wait for my mom to get finished talking on the phone before I could attempt to make this video again. I think I've finished talking about my difficulties with making this video, so I'm going to move on to what I mainly wanted to talk about during this video. In my notes, I have written down forms of reflection. Sometimes I'm only able to do surface level thinking. Sometimes I'm able to do deep thinking. I prefer to do deep thinking when I think it's necessary. Sometimes I get up and pace around while thinking. Other times I'm able to sit still and think. Although that's not very often that I'm able to sit still and think. Sometimes I'll talk to people on the Xbox and think about a lot of different things while trying to talk to those people. Sometimes I'll randomly start talking to my mother or someone else. Sometimes I will vent. Sometimes I will jump from train of thought to train of thought. Sometimes after I jump from train of thought to train of thought, I will end up forgetting a lot of what I was thinking about. Sometimes I will remember again and get back on track. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I will do a lot of thinking so that I can come up with ideas or plans. Sometimes I do a lot of thinking so that I can figure something out that I'm trying to figure out or solve a problem. Sometimes I do a lot of thinking in the form of what I refer to as meditation. For me, that usually involves trying to block out distractions and spend a lot of time alone trying to think deeply about things that are important to me so that I can try to organize my thoughts and memories better. Sometimes I do prayers. I usually try to do thinking in the morning and at night before I go to bed so that I can organize my thoughts better at the start of the day and at the end of the day. In my notes, I've written down tips. The first one says reflecting can be difficult when done too early in the morning or too late at night. Sometimes it's difficult for me to get my day started. Sometimes it's difficult for me to figure out what I'm going to do next. Sometimes it's difficult for me to focus for long enough on figuring out what to do next. Sometimes I have already figured out what I want to do, but have difficulties doing it because of me getting distracted a lot. For example, I'm having difficulty with making this video because I keep getting distracted, and also I am low on energy, and I am not feeling very well right now. So I'm hoping that I can wrap up this video soon. Sometimes it takes me a while to get my day started and get started on the things that I want to do. The main things, I mean. Sometimes it takes a long time for me to get started with doing the main things that I want to do during the day. Sometimes it can take a while for me to get settled down at night and get to sleep. Sometimes I procrastinate too much. Other times I just zone out a lot and get distracted, jumping from train of thought to train of thought for no apparent reason. Another tip that I've written down says, don't try to do deep personal reflections while lying in bed with your eyes closed if you don't want to fall asleep on accident before you are finished. I've done that many times. I've told myself, it's okay if I procrastinate. It's okay if I wait until I go to bed to organize my thoughts and memories. But then I would end up accidentally falling asleep. And so I realized I need to try to do my reflecting before I lie in bed with my eyes closed. I've also learned that the longer I put off doing my important reflections, the harder it is to get back on track with doing them as well as I would like to do them again. And the longer I wait to do the personal reflections, the harder my life becomes, the worse my memory gets, and the worse I feel. And so, another tip that I've written down in my notes says things that help. So I have written a list of things that help me to do my personal reflections. So first thing is not being hungry. Another thing is not being thirsty. Another thing is not having to use the restroom. Another thing is not being tired. Another thing is blocking out distractions. And the last thing in the list is not having low blood sugar levels. If I'm hungry or thirsty, or if I have to use the restroom, or if I'm tired, or if I have low blood sugar levels, then it is easy for me to get distracted. Anyways, I have to wrap up this video. Before I end this video, I want to say that what was originally intended to be a single video somehow turned into a 3-part series because I was unable to fit everything into just one video, and then I had thought I was able to fit the rest of it into the second part, but then learned that I ended up having to make a third part. But either way, I'm satisfied, so that's it for this video. The video is finally over. Yay. Peace.